Welcome to your best bets Tuesday night here. Recording. We're one night late. We did not record on the night of the national championship. For request of the guest tonight, recurring guest Johnny Strouser. Johnny, aren't you so glad that we passed on our usual recording night for the golf podcast to watch that game last night?
Good God. You know what? I could have just, we probably could have recorded one like after about, 10 minutes into that game, at that point. That was pretty miserable to watch. But I ended up winning a little bit on it. I had a couple TCU bets with Duggan and I played an under, which was a mistake because Georgia covered, I think, all the overs the entire game, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. But yeah, it was two great semifinal games. You finally get that in the college football playoffs, and then you get just the absolute stinker of all stinkers in that game. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned to me earlier in the day Georgia first half, so I followed that. That was my biggest bet of the night, and then I also had the TCU under. But then I kind of negated it with a bunch of losing NBA picks. That's kind of what I do. But my kid actually asked me a really good question. He said, "Would you rather have two fantastic semifinal games like we had this year, or one great national championship game?" Like we had last year. So it's a great question. I said probably the national title game, just because that just felt so empty and hollow last night watching that in the second half where it just felt like meaningless football.
yeah, that's actually a really good question, and I could go both ways, but yeah, I mean, we've had some real good national championship games with the Trevor Lawrence games of when for Clemson, when in Bama when Jalen Hurts was pulled for Tua and had that
Mhm.
amazing second half. So there's been a lot of real good games. So it was kind of, I guess, maybe going to be at that point where they were going to have a shitty game there. But I mean, the two games on New Year's Eve were great, and they've had a
Awesome.
couple of the other bowls were good as well. So can't have them all. But that's a good question. I don't know how I'd answer that, but I
Yeah.
certainly was disappointed in it just being over, like I said, that early in the first quarter.
The odds for next year's national championship already released. Georgia's like plus 275. It's insane. And I don't know if you've seen their schedule for next year. I did today. I was like, oh my God, just pretty much put them in the playoffs
Yeah,
already.
they're
It's amazing.
yeah,
And it's
they're not even leaving the state for the pre-SEC games, and then they just got to run through and they got to beat Bama and then LSU probably in the championship SEC championship game there. But I also saw a tweet they were, and everybody with the recency bias, and you basically you look at Twitter and you're just like it's all fake, it's all wrong. People just love what they currently see. Saw people wondering if 2022 23 whatever this Georgia team is better than 2019 LSU with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and I'm thinking, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, two of the best at their position in the NFL. I mean, that team was clearly better, but this Georgia team, I think they would have beat Michigan by 40. I mean, at least. So I mean, they're pretty well set up and a lot of good NFL dudes. And I kind of want to watch a little bit of that because with the Lions getting the Rams pick at number 6 in the draft, and I know you've got some interest in that. There's some guys on that roster that are going to go early in that draft. So I kind of was very interested to see how they play in the with the lights and everything. And that team is big, it's fast, that's a varsity team playing at JV.
Yeah, it really was. I kind of felt like that could happen because I thought Georgia's worst game of the season was against Ohio State. They managed to get through that one, and I had a feeling they could really kind of stomp on TCU, not to that level. Yeah, I was watching for the Jalen Carter angle, of course, with the Bears having the first pick and all these scenarios already, kind of going through my head. And Jalen Carter versus Will Anderson. What do we need? Well, we need both really badly, but Jalen Carter's obviously had some consistency issues. We that weird semifinal game against Ohio State where he was like fatigued, and I'm like, what the fuck are you fatigued from? You've had a break for a month, and third quarter you can't stay on the field. So that was a red flag, but he looked really great last night. I wouldn't have a huge complaint either way if the Bears went that way. But so golf. Uh, I don't know. I don't think. I think both of us saw a lot of golf throughout the week. I don't think either one of us saw a ton Sunday. I did rewatch it last night, the back nine, the replay, just to figure out what happened because I don't know like you, but I have this instant regret when it Friday, Saturday, when there appears to be like a guy that is taking hold of the tournament, and you're like, oh my god, how did I not see this one coming? And I thought about Morikawa last week just based off of what was the old Morikawa rule for a while there. Well, if he's 22, 25 to 1, he was an auto play, right? And, in our preview show, and last week with Brian, and then also in our majors draft that we did in the fall. I was going to talk about Morikawa kind of being the forgotten guy in 2022. He didn't win. His numbers really weren't that bad, but his putting obviously let him down. And we didn't really talk about him a lot, but I'm like, this guy is he's still one of the elite when he can have one of his streaky putting weeks. And we saw it through, well, 65 holes or so, and then it just came crashing down. But it was mainly the short game that really kind of started leaking, combined with John Rahm just going completely berserk for about 4 or 5 holes in the back. And it's amazing how quickly a golf tournament can flip, because I read that Morikawa at one point was minus 20,000 to win the tournament, and to lose that lead is almost incomprehensible.
Yeah, that you don't think of him as a guy who's going to cough up a lead like that with being such a solid driver of the ball and such a great iron player that it feels like when he gets any kind of a lead that he's kind of automatic as long as he puts just as a zero putter there. And like you had said, I think we both kind of wanted to cover him a little bit more in the last podcast because I had looked at it and I saw three names at a pretty good number. Was Sunjay M, Victor Hovland, and Collin Morikawa. And I picked him in the official picks. I did bet Hovland as well, but I didn't touch Morikawa, and I probably should have thought more into that because, you know, these elite talents, whether they're golfers, football players, baseball players, whatever, if they have a bad season, they use that off season, however long it is, to kind of motivate themselves and figure out where their issues were and everything like that. And he was so on those first like 3.5 days. I mean, he was putting the ball like crazy, hit the ball amazing. Had really worked on his short game and on his putting in the off season there, and it got real consistent at it. Unfortunately, Rahm, you got to give him a lot of credit for staying near the top of the leaderboard there and making a big run. But I think what we've looked at a couple leads that and times in contention that Morikawa's crumbled there. He had the lead, had a big lead at the Hero. And then I think there was another event that he was like tied or something like that. He was tied or one back, shot 79 in the final group. And I think what happens is he really gets out of character, and it's his short game is not just his putting, but it's his chipping and his pitching where, if he starts missing some greens, there is that doubt, that lack of confidence, that it's not as automatic as a guy like John Rahm or Jordan Spieth or Justin Thomas that are a little bit more comfortable over the ball, with those shorter shots like that. So he did that, and I had to do the same thing. I didn't really watch it on Sunday. Watched it Monday morning when Golf Channel did the replay, and it was just a series of just bad shots, and then compounding with really bad putts. His lines weren't good. His speed wasn't good. It was just like a totally different guy that last 10 or so holes. So, it's just like you have to look at it is on the PGA Tour, you've got to play a full 72 holes, because you look at you look at a guy like that who seems like he's unbeatable, but he kind of beat himself there, and you had one of the best players in the world that was sitting right there, right behind him, playing an unbelievable round. So, it was really really weird, and I kind of stopped betting after I think Saturday morning. I placed a few match bet or day bets, but Sunday I was like, you know what? It doesn't feel like this is one that he's gonna give away. And you know what? Probably what 6, 7, 8 out of 10 times he's gonna close that out. Maybe even 10 times out of 10 the next time he's got a big lead like that. So it was kind of one of those freak things, and if anybody jumped on it and placed some bets there to get Rahm at like plus 8,000 or something like that on the back nine, then more power to you. But at that point, you just kind of just count what you've won and what you've lost and just watch the end of it.
Rahm bogeyed the first hole. He goes down by 9 shots. At that point, I saw that he was 250 to 1. Um,
Wow.
it's crazy. Now, if you got it on 250, that's you're some sort of um, master prognosticator on another level. Um, yeah, to me, it's troubling a little bit for Morikawa. I know he went through this whole, he hired a new short game coach, Parker McLaughlin. I don't. That was kind of weird. I thought, but it really broke down on 14, the short par four. He sculled a bunker shot that led to a bogey. 15, he just barely misses a green. That huge runoff on the par five. Then he hit one fat. I mean, I never felt more relatable to anyone than Morikawa on 15 when he just laid the sign over the fucking ball there, and that led to a bogey. So I mean, the chipping was, I mean, that's a real thing, and you could kind of feel it getting in his head. He had the same kind of play on 16 too, and obviously some poor iron shots led to that, but he made the point like these other guys just seem to figure out how to get up and down. The Rahms and the Thomases and Rory's, their short games are just more tidy. Um, again, Morikawa is one of the best iron players in the world, and when his putting's on, it's. I think he was second in strokes gained putting for the week. So yeah, you can look at the short putts down the stretch, 7, 8 footers, but it was a couple straight iron shots and then short game shots that got him there. But I don't know what that means going forward. I will give you credit. You were talking up John Rahm in the draft show. You said you felt like it could be a monster year. You reiterated it last week. Um, John Rahm with I think it's his eighth PGA Tour win, 17th professional win between both tours. His winning percentage, this floored me. I got this from Kyle Porter on Twitter, one of our favorites. Top 10 players in the world, their career winning percentage, his is 11%, which was that was higher than I thought. It's Rory, for comparison, 8.3%, JT 6.9%. So I mean, he wins a lot of tournaments, no matter where he starts. And again, we said, one of us said Rahm with a chip on his shoulder, which it feels like he has this year, could be super fucking dangerous.
I absolutely, that's kind of the first thing I thought about was during this off season was how good he could be, and how you know not angry but more aggressive or controlled, you know just he's just frustrated with a lot of things, and feels like he's the guy who on the as far as like the face of the tour and all that stuff, that he's the one that's being always pushed out and whatnot. So I think he's personally he's taken that personally, and I wish I would have bet him. I wish it, sometimes sometimes in betting, if the juice is worth the squeeze, then you just deal with it. But
Yeah, you you
13
you
to
put
2
you put
odds.
it out there. You put it out there last week for sure.
Yeah, and I might think twice about not betting him going forward if I see something like that. But it was such a good field and everything. But watch out for him throughout the season, and I think he's going to be really primed to want to win at Augusta. So I expect him, throughout the entire West Coast swing here to be to come out and play. And if he's making putts like he was doing uh, at Kapalua there, I mean, he might be almost a weekly auto bet even if the number isn't the greatest of numbers.
I don't know if he's in the field next week at I don't know if
The American Express.
I was gonna say, is it Career Builder, Humana, American Express? I don't know because we know what happened last year.
I think he
The
I think he actually committed to that because I heard about it and it was like, wait a minute, that was the what did he call it?
I have this one ingrained in my brain for life. Piece of shit, fucking setup, putting contest is what
Putting
it.
contest. Yep.
That's right.
Piece of shit
Um,
putting contest.
I don't know if he's playing next week. I know he'll definitely be in the field at Torrey after that, and we know he's a monster there. So yeah, he could. I mean, if he starts fast this year, gets a couple wins before the Masters, I mean, he might be kind of the guy going that way. We'll see how it turns out, but super dangerous, no flaws in his game, motivated. It just feels like he's got a lot to prove this year. Anything else from Century for you? Credit to Brian Straley. He talked about Tom Hoagie. Tom Hoagie with an amazing week. Um, from a pick standpoint, we were just kind of going through this before the show. I hit Tom Kim top 10 at plus 190, and you hit the Rahm head to head over Scheffler minus 140.
Mm.
Mm. Mm.
Not much to add to it. We talked. Will Zalatoris had basically been out the last 4 months with the really bad back injury. Really was letting it go. Started out a little bit slow, but got it going. So he's a guy who I liked. I'm going to be looking at betting coming up here in a lot of these events here. So something like that. Max Homa as well played unbelievably good on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 63, 66, I think. So continuing his good play, and he is a California guy, so loves the Point of Greens. So a lot of these events, he's going to probably play a pretty heavy schedule, and I like to see that he's swinging the club really, really well, playing with all that confidence
Mm-hmm.
and perspective, and
Yeah, that's good.
look at him going. I like him going forward in the spring, and then Tom Kim, the other guy, the new NBC darling, who's it's already kind of gotten annoying, I think, a little bit with all the talk and all that stuff. But I
The
think
the Spieth story over
this be oh my
Christmas. Yeah,
God,
yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ, yeah, the babysat the kid or whatever, whatever.
Oh, and Tom Kim loves to eat. No one loves food more than Tom Kim.
And so I feel I like that because I'm kind of like Tom Kim then because I like to eat as well. But I
For sure.
I seriously think though, like and I've talked about it, but golf wise, this guy's gonna do some things here. So he didn't putt that great. I mean
Mm-mm.
he hit the ball amazing, and we're gonna talk about him because he's in the field here, but he finished top five, so good event on him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's keeping it going. I mean, every time I think, this is a nice little run, flash in the pan. No, I think he is the real deal. My only other takeaway from Century is just what a fun opening tournament to the calendar season. What a fun golf course to watch them play on. I mean, it's one of those where you're like, God, I'd love to get a chance to play there and just use the natural terrain and some of these wild ass slopes that they got to play off of. I mean, it just looks incredibly fun. Obviously, the views are awesome, but it's just a fun, relaxed way to open the season. I think you could argue. I mean, we didn't really talk about it last week. It's one of the elevated events. How do you I guess I did want to ask you, how do you think that's going to go over this year? Is it going to feel like a lot of the same guys in these elevated events? Is it, this week this event it's Rahm and Morikawa, and then the next one it's JT and Spieth, and then it's Rory. Is there going to be too much saturation of these same big names, or is that what we're really wanting? I mean, that's what we asked for, right?
I would say as a golf nut like you, I mean, I just feel that it's going to be great. It's just we're going to see all these guys come out, and the galleries are going to be good because these events are going to have all the good players, and they're going to bring the energy, and it's going to make these types of events. I'm really, really worried about how the non-elevated events are going to end up going, because I think we're going to see some just historically bad fields. As far, I mean, not for on a competitive
Sure.
standpoint. Like you and I will still enjoy it. We'll still bet on it. We'll still watch it and talk about it and everything like that. But as far as a lot of these events are going to take a clear back seat because they're all going to come to the same ones. But I don't really think so. I think I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Yeah, we're going to see probably a lot of those same guys. But you know what? That's kind of what we've been wanting to see. And usually we only get that the majors, the WGC, and the Players Championship, and now these regular events that are great events that we love, like Waste Management and um, Torrey Pines, well, which normally has a good field, anyways. But all these events are going to have these pretty elite fields, which I think is going to be a blast.
Yeah, there will be it'll be an interesting comparison this week. The non-elevated event, more of a regular field that you'll see a lot of these events. Probably even the week after at the American Express is an even weaker field. And these next 2 weeks, you could argue these are ones for the sickos like us, right? Like we're we're worried about what's Robbie Shelton going to do this week? Is he going to show up and compete for his first win? Because most people don't fucking care, but we do. Um, but the more casual fans gonna love the elevated events because you're gonna see two of the top 10, two of the top 15, like we saw last week. You sprinkle in Max Homa in contention, some of these other guys, so it's going to be great. I personally love the Sony Open week because I love the full fields. I love the full odds. I love seeing guys that have potential from 100 to 1 to win. Just as likely as someone's 41 to 1. And we'll talk about that. But so we'll kind of talk about that as we go forward through the season, just how these elevated events are playing out compared to your quote unquote regular event like this week at Sony. Um, we were texting this week about the Netflix show. I am every day I'm looking, I'm searching, and the No Laying Up guys have talked about how they've heard that this thing is amazing. It's already been renewed for a season two, that they're going to be filming this year. There's a tennis show that's coming out on Netflix, I think, in the next couple of weeks, um, that I'm going to check out. That's I think a uh, comparable thing to the whatever the PGA Tour Drive to Survive thing is going to look like. But we're keeping tabs on that. I'm hoping for some sort of February release on this show because I can't wait. And it's definitely going to be part of what we talk about here in the pod.
Yeah, it's got to be coming out, I would say, fairly soon. I mean, it was pretty much covering the 2022 season, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, the 2022 golf season was on and off the course, was a season unlike any that we've ever had, and probably ever in the history of golf, with with the live tour, and then with all the other events, and just the personalities, and how it's just been, it was remarkable. And for then to have cameras, and if the no laying up guys, who we trust greatly with as golf fans and experts and everything, if they're already like, yeah, this is it, I can't wait. I mean, I can't wait to watch it, and then we'll discuss it, on our on these podcasts here, because I kind of want to see what they're covering, how they're covering it. And I didn't know anything about the tennis show. I know asked you about it, but they had the Formula One
yeah.
drive,
Drive
whatever
to
it was,
Survive. Yeah.
drive to survive. I didn't catch that yet, but heard a lot of good things about it, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the same producers. So,
Yep.
it's something that it could be just amazing. That just stuff that golf Twitter, I think, talks about, and but never really makes it to what you see on air, or what you'll see in like the main websites that you might just click on to read articles and stuff. This will be more behind the scenes, and I kind of crave that stuff about these guys, and seeing how this is going to end up playing out. But I'm sure it'll be fantastic.
Yeah. I think it's going to be fascinating. And like you said, what a great season to film behind the scenes of the PGA Tour, uh, like we had last year. So keep tabs on that. So this week, Sony Open, Wailea Country Club, second leg of the Hawaii Swing, a reasonable field, I guess I would say. Seven of the top 25 in the world are here. got Tom Kim, Jordan Spieth, Sanjay Hideki as the defending champion. So those are some of the names that are here. Um, Wildly different golf course. I think we mentioned that a little bit last week. I mean, you can't imagine how different these are. Wildlife to me is comparable to like not necessarily like a Hilton Head, but I think it plays a shorter course like that. Premium on iron play. Trying to get the ball in play. Distance is not necessarily a factor here. Bermuda greens, you still got to putt. Winning score is usually 20 under or better, so you still got to make birdies. But I mean, you watch last week and you see all these ocean views, and there are some holes on the ocean here, but it's almost feels more like this parkland course when you're watching it in Hawaii. It's kind of a weird feel, but great tournament though, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty much just got one kind of ocean hole, and the ocean really doesn't come into play because it's on the Waikiki, so they're limited on the space and everything. But they've had this I think it's the third longest stint of on tour. Been playing there since I think 1965 is what I thought I saw.
Hmm.
It's flat. You could stand on one end of the golf course and you could see the other end of the golf course because there's no elevation change at all, as opposed to the rolling fairways down the volcano in Maui there. So completely different, but it's got that Hawaii feel, but it's the first full field one. So it's fun to watch because you get the guys want to come off to a good start. You get the Corn Ferry guys who are graduates, and a lot of them get into it. So there's that competitiveness, and everybody wants to get started and play well in this first event there, because this is a Ryder Cup year. So the Americans are trying to accumulate points, and you want to get the FedEx Cup points, which will make it easier to get into the playoffs come August and everything. So good golf course, nothing special to it. It is short, like you said. It's pretty tight. Lots of dog legs. They've got big trees. So like you're looking for a guy who is an accurate driver, guy who hits his irons 125 to 150, 160 yards well. And it's Bermuda greens, so guys who can make putts, guys are gonna hit a lot of greens, and it's just about it's gonna end up navigating if there's any winds, and then making putts. But good, neat event, nice golf course, fun little one, just a classic. I can't wait.
What I look at right away is I look at the history of who's won, and I look at their odds when they won. Going back to 2013, this is completely a long shots winner type of course. Um, two, three, six, seven of the last, I guess 11 winners have been 40 to 1 or longer. Um, Four of those have been 80 to 1 or longer. Kevin Na 2021 was 80 to 1. Pat Kazire 2018 was 80 to 1. Fabian Gomez 2016 was 100 to 1. And our boy Russell Henley with his first one in 2013 was 100 to 1. Um, so this might be one of those tournaments, this golf course where you can look down the board and you can sprinkle 3, 4 of these guys that are longer to 51 and have a reasonable chance. Um, we'll go through the odds in a second. I'm trying to figure out my strategy for the week because you can look at these things and say I'm gonna bet Tom Kim and Jordan Spieth, and I'm gonna put all my eggs in those guys' baskets. And Tom Kim's probably best player here. He's playing the best, and Spieth showed up last week in a reasonable way, and I'm gonna lay everything I have on those two guys. Or I'm looking between 50 and 100, and I'm gonna use that same money and put it on 5 guys because course history shows that winner it's likely to come from that group, and there's a lot of really good players that statistically match up well with that golf course. So that's two trains of thought. I don't know if you have a thought ahead of this tournament already, or you kind of need to dig into it a little bit more. But just one way of thinking about it, and I guess it's all about your betting preference.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of that. we'll talk about the top end of the leaderboard, but there are some guys I really like up there, but I'm gonna add a lot more of the long shots because just for that reason alone, um, that's where we can find winners at is that's where we need to really see if we can dig into it and see guys who we like that fit this golf course well and that are playing well enough. So I'm gonna do both. I mean, there are guys at the top, but there's also a lot of guys down there that as we look into this a little bit more, as I look into more tomorrow and do more research, I'm gonna do that. I'm also gonna look at though is guys who played last week.
Hmm.
I don't know the statistics of guys who've played the previous week, and it may not be as good as I thought it was, but um, typically the fellas who play pretty decent the week before in Maui end up playing pretty well in this first full field event here, just because they're acclimated to the time change and just the grasses and everything like that. So there's some strategies that you can go in different ways, and I think that's when we come up with the picks here. By tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what we end up coming up with as far as um, incorporating all those different types of ways you could look into this.
Yeah, and I think if people that have listened to you and I for a while, we kind of have a different style. I'm usually um, to use your baseball guy, baseball comparison. I'm Alfonso Soriano. I'm Javi Baez. You're Tony Gwynn. You're usually hitting for those singles and doubles. You might crack a homer once in a while, and I will go for the homer most often, and I might have a lot of strikeouts. And again, it's your preference. So how do you want to allot your money? Do you want to go more aggressive, do all win bets, or maybe do like you do? You sprinkle it around, have a couple win bets, couple top 10s, top 20s, matchups, so forth. It's again how you like to allot your money and how you like to potentially lose it as well.
Yeah, if anybody looks at our picks that we post out on Facebook and Instagram, they can see that you're far more aggressive with your odds than I am. But you know what? You hit a lot more win bets than I do. So there's multiple ways to do it. So
Yeah. All right. The favorite, as we mentioned a couple times already, Tom Kim on DraftKings at 11-1. I'm going to share my screen because I actually have odds checker up here as well. 11-1. Sunjay coming in at 12 on DraftKings. Jordan Spieth at 16. Brian Harmon at 16-1. It's jarring when I see his name that high, but we could talk about him and why he fits this golf course so well. Hideki at 18, the defending champion. My boy Russell Henley, uh, coming for just revenge tour 2023 on Waialae at 22-1. Corey Connors at 22. Tom Hoagie, just a kind of jet setter these days. You know, going to the national championship game last night and coming back to Hawaii. 25-1. Billy Ho at 30. Those are the names that are 30-1 or less. Tom Kim, is it worth it at 11-1?
is it worth it? Probably not. But is it a bet you should make? You probably should. What worries me is that he's getting a whole bunch of just public money, and there's just everybody is on Tom Kim this week, and every time the public is on a golfer, especially. I mean, you could look at football and basketball and all that other stuff, but every time that seems to happen, I don't know if these players hear that more from their camps or from the media or they read Twitter or whatever. It doesn't necessarily always work, but he's young and dumb enough and good enough that he's the best player in this field right now. I mean, I think he's the best guy. So yes, I'm going to bet him. I'm going to though with the NFL playoffs this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to parlay that. I'm going to figure out a way. And in fact, I have figured out a way, but you can look at some heavy favorites. You could look at a couple teams there that this weekend that really may, it's going to be a hard time for them to lose on the money line. The Niners, and I'm not going to go into mine because that'll just jinx it and I'll end up losing. But I ended up putting together something and got him at 19-1. So
Hmm.
I like him this week a lot. I really do. And, I like him top 10. I'll probably play him in a matchup. So if you see him in full tournament matchups and he's, he'll probably be against him or
Yeah.
Spieth. I haven't looked at him yet. I like him. So he's going to be on my card. Um, if you don't like the number, you can kind of make that a little bit bigger if you're a little bit smart about it.
I I followed your suggestion last night. To put Tom Kim with Georgia, the Niners, and the Bills. Um, and I had to look while we're talking what that gave me. I do think it's a little short for on its own at 11. Um, I don't see the Buffalo Bills losing at home to the whatever the Miami Dolphins look like. If it's Skylar Thompson, if it's I don't know. That's a whole other story. But there are ways, as we've talked in the past, to kind of boost these odds where it's a more palatable way of, okay, I can take Tom Kim and I can feel good about it. I got him basically at 19-1 with that parlay, and that to me that's okay. Now, could Brock Purdy turn into a pumpkin? And I don't think so, but it's possible, and I could be burned by it. Um, Jordan Spieth to me is a little interesting at 16. He kind of played pretty solidly last week. Did some Spieth like things, but I think it's a reasonable golf course for him. Is it going to be one of those years where Jordan's on with his irons, and if so, then this might be a good course. But he's been very just inconsistent as we've seen in the past. Where one of these, some one year he's top five strokes gained approach, next year he's out of the top 100. So it kind of bears it to be seen what kind of year Jordan's going to have with his irons. Um, do you prefer Spieth or a guy like Hideki, who obviously has good vibes, hit the greatest three world in the history of the world last year to win this tournament, coming off a reasonable week? Do you have a preference there? Obviously, Hideki with a better number.
Which, by the way, Hideki was my best bet last year here. So I just wanted to remind it. That was, I think, the only one I hit for a winner bet. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if I hit another one. But
Listen, that
anyway,
was we were on a roll at that point in time because you
yes.
hit
Oh,
you
we
hit Hideki,
were,
yeah,
yep.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then
we were
we
doing
we
pretty good
we
that
followed with
that stretch.
Luke List after that, Scotty
Yep.
after that. Yeah, that was a
Yep.
good run. Good run.
That was a good run. It's probably going to be Spieth. I still don't trust Hideki on back-to-back weeks. I'm assuming he's healthy, but I don't know that he's healthy. And I think this event is a pretty big deal for him because there's a huge Japanese based uh, uh, businesses and culture there in Hawaii. So I think this has a lot of meaning to him, and he wants to play well for. I'm sure he's got sponsors that are out here, watch him and everything like that. But Jordan, though, I probably between the two, I like him a little bit more. And the fact that Hideki won last year, it's so hard to repeat. And Jordan looked pretty good. I mean, he still has his one or two swings around that's not really gonna keep him in contention for a full 72 holes, but he's not that far off. And if he can just tighten up the putting, I don't really mind him at all.
Mhm. Brian Harmon, again, I said jarring. I can't think of a better word to see him that high on the board, but Harmon's a really good player, and this is a tailor-made golf course for him. I mean, there's probably a world where I got the Tom Kim parlay going, but I could see myself just saying, I'll take my chances with Brian Harmon and Corey Connors at 18 and 22. Uh, Golf course that's set up for both of them. Obviously, Harmon's a much better putter, um, and take my chances. I don't know if I go that route or not, but I could see.
I Yeah, I mean, I like Brian Harmon this week. That number though just kind of scared me. But if he's going to win an event, this is probably going to be an event that he's going to win. So, he played last week, so there is a lot of value in him playing in this. I'm going to look at him in the matchup part and probably a top 10, looking like he's at 18 to 1 on BetMGM. I'll see what he is in the top 10 market there. He's probably plus, I'd say plus 210 for a top 10. And I prefer, we don't usually talk about the books. I like to bet top top 5, top 10, top 20 markets. Bet MGM because dead heat rules do not apply, which means they do not deduct if the player ties for within that position. So if he ties for 10th, they'll deduct on the other books. At BetMGM they don't. So I'll look at him in that. I don't know if I could win bet him. I'd have to probably build something to get, because he's probably more like, in my mind, he's more like 25 to 1.
Mhm. Corey Connors.
Dude can't putt, man.
Hmm. Yeah,
I mean, if he has his putting week, he can win multiple times. It's just,
you're gonna have to gain 3, 4, 5 shots putting this week.
yeah, you look at the guys who won there. So Corey Connors, I'm not gonna, I'll probably won't have him on my card at all. Unfortunately, I do like the guy. I mean, I like him. I like his game. I mean, dude hits it great and everything like that. So probably not him. And then Russ Henley.
Mhm.
Um,
By the
I
way,
mean,
I mean,
yeah,
we missed on Henley in Houston. We weren't recording shows at that time, and mostly in the fall. And bummer to miss out on the Henley win.
I know we've talked about him. He always seems to come up. He probably comes up in what 70% of the shows that we do that he
Yeah.
plays in, and we're always like, "Hey, I like Henley's number there." I don't mind. I don't mind him here. He lost in the playoff, and I mean, I think he could have won that. Obviously, Matsuyama hit that unreal fairway wood and everything, but Henley's got. I saw just before we came on, they released the tee times. He's got a morning tee time on Thursday, so a good chance to get out, start well. Hint, hint, first round lead bet
Hmm.
for Henley, but loves the golf course. Former champion, played well last year. Everything points to he would be a really good candidate to bet here. And at 22 to 1, I mean, that's not too bad. That's kind of what would be expected, I think, pretty much for him. So I like him in pretty much any capacity you want to bet him at.
Yeah. Moving down the board here, 30. Well, we talked about. Well, we kind of touched on Billy's. By the way, Billy's. I think that's a pretty good number.
Yeah,
He played terrible in the first round last week, but his last three rounds are pretty good. And now I
yeah,
think you got a bit of a bargain on him. I think it's worth looking at. I think I
yeah.
said that about
He's
everyone under 30 to 1. I said it's worth looking at, but I think it's that close.
Well, I think Billy Ho's that type of player though that he after that first round played a lot better and is going to want to come out of the blocks playing better. Thing with Horschel though is that his bad is just not very good, and it's pretty much missed the cut bad. So if you get the first round Billy Ho, then he's going home on Friday, but he could he's a good driver of the golf ball. Made himself into a really good putter. He's just a solid all around game, and he's that grinder type that seems to win because you look at those the 80 to ones and the 100 to ones and the 40 to ones. Those guys got to be grinders, and he's just a more talented version of that. So
Right.
I don't hate that at all, and that's
Yeah.
actually a pretty good number on him.
Yeah. It looks like you can get him 35 to 1 on points bets. So a bit of a bargain there. 30 and above, Taylor Montgomery, Keegan Bradley, KH Lee, Cam Davis, Mad McNeely, Keith Mitchell, Harris English, Adam Scott, Siwoo, Kuchar, Poston, Bezadenhout, Mac Hughes, JJ Spawn. We'll see if he goes with the shirt untucked this week. And Andrew Putnam. Those are the guys that are between 30 and 50 on DraftKings. Lots to unpack there. Got a couple.
I do like JJ Spawn. I wanted to mention the untucked shirt. Um, I don't have a problem with it.
Sure.
He didn't look good with pants though, because the pants and the untucked shirt, he doesn't have the flat stomach, and the shirt was a little bit too long. The shirt was just a little bit not his size. I have no problem. I know you're more of the traditional, you know, golf apparel,
Mhm.
aficionado there. I've relaxed, and I used to be that way too, but I don't mind that. But I'll let you answer. But his game, though, I mean, he played really, really good. 50 to 1 is a good number.
Mhm.
Really good putter. Was rolling the ball really well. Um, Kind of fell out of contention. He didn't really fall out of contention. He just never really scared Morikawa at all too much
Right.
on that Sunday. So,
Yeah.
but some pretty good play otherwise there. And I do like KH Lee. That number seems a little aggressive than what I'd like it, but he's a good player, and I think this golf course fits because he's hits his irons well, hits his short irons well, pretty straight driver of the ball for the most part. Um, I'll look at betting him, and he's of course typically a good first round lead guy as well.
Mhm.
I don't know when he's teeing off, but he's a guy who I think could be around come Sunday.
Yeah. Mr. Byron Nelson, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's his tournament.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, another President's Cup guy that just gained a ton of confidence from the President's Cup per Paul Lazinger. KH Lee, Mac Hughes, Cam Davis. I like Cam Davis. I don't know if I love him at 35. I wish it was like 45. Um, because I feel like he's not necessarily going to be a superstar. I just think he's got a lot. I think he's got a high ceiling, like a top 25 golfer in the world ceiling. So I'm anxious to see kind of what he does the next 2 or 3 years if he can get there. I just like his game. This course we talked about takes a little bit of your distance away. He's a long hitter. I don't know if he's got the iron game for 4 rounds to win this tournament, but I'm interested in Cam Davis. Harris English has a great history here. I don't know if we're back to peak Harris English from a couple of years ago, but an interesting number at 40. And then the other guy is JT Poston at 45. I think he had a reasonable week last week. Um, it's funny, would I rather take JT Poston at 45 or Corey Connors at 22? Poston, double the odds, where much better putter. He gets on these runs where he's just kind of unbelievable, like John Deere last year. We saw him a couple years ago at the Wyndham, and he gets these runs going where he makes everything. So I'm mildly interested in Poston at that number. I could also talk about Mac Hughes a little bit in that realm as well at 50. So those are a couple names. That range to me is really interesting. I would not be surprised to see the winner come out in that range. A lot of guys I like there. Can't name them all, but there's a lot to unpack. Let's go between 50 and 100. I'll just mention a couple names. Kurt Kitayama, unbelievable year last year. He's at 55. Webb Simpson, 60 to 1. If there's ever a Webb Simpson golf course, God, it feels like this one. Um, Denny McCarthy, great year last year at 60. The system play, your boy Adam Svensson at 75 feels really, really appealing. Hayden Buckley at 80. Chris Kirk had a good run here a couple years ago. He's at 90. Um, and then at 100, you mentioned Nick Hardy last week. Liked him for a big year. He's at 100. Brendan Steele at 100. He almost won here a couple years ago. Anyone there that you mentioned peppering a couple of these longer guys, maybe 50 to 100. Anyone that you're gonna win bet in that group?
I'm gonna go Nick Hardy because I talked about him, and I think that this is a good golf course for him. Will Gordon is kind of a random one. I think he's sitting at 100 is what I've got him on DraftKings here. Um, I'm not sure. Is it was doing some research. I don't have it with me, unfortunately, but he was a guy who popped up. It seemed pretty good there. Andrew Putnam,
Hmm.
he was a guy a couple of years ago, I think it was, in the West Coast swing there, but I think he's a Pepperdine guy. But fits the golf course well, hits his hits those short and middle irons really, really well. It's just whether he can get some putts to roll in. And I do, and Adam Svensson was going to be the other guy I like. I mean, he's just seems to be he's going to be kind of that next Canadian guy that's emerging, and he's kind of established himself full time on tour. Not really a lot of really good finishes, but that number at 75 to 1 is kind of just jumping out at me.
I did bet Adam Svensson. He was my first bet yesterday, and I got him at 80, and I felt exactly the same as you. He's actually still 80 here on Odds Checker at PointsBet. A couple of the books. Yeah, it just feels like a great golf course for him. We saw him win at RSM. Traditionally, a great ball striker, and kind of like the Corey Connors rule, not a good putter, but he gained a bunch of strokes that week at RSM, and he won rather easily. So I think Svensson has upside. Go back to Webb. I don't know. Is Webb Simpson dead? I mean, is his career just kind of dead?
I don't. I'm going to say no, but I'm going to
Close.
say something's going on where it's not clicking. And after he won the U.S. Open, I thought he was dead, and he kind of came back and had to win the Players Championship,
Yeah.
and
And
then
then
he's won.
remember the COVID year. I mean, he was unbelievable in
Yeah,
2020. And in fact, I mean, many people were talking about him being the best player in the world after the tee shot. I mean, he was that good
yeah,
with his irons and putter. I mean, so I don't know what's happened. He's not that old. He's like 37 or 8. So um, see if he can get back on track. If you kind of just think of the old Webb Simpson,
yeah.
like 70 to 1 at a course where irons and putting is a premium, shit, that's Webb Simpson's game.
That's true. Yeah,
Um, I mentioned Denny, kind of a I've kind of got love for Denny, and he's I mean it kind of for me. 60 to 1 on DraftKings looks like 66 to 1. Points bet again. Points bet coming through with lots of good numbers. Uh Putting, maybe the best pure putter on tour. I said that in one of the pods a couple years ago, and I think you had a reaction. Now I think you're more
no,
settled with that.
I've bought in. I've
Okay.
purchased that
Okay.
notion. Bermuda green putter.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
these are Bermuda greens. That's a great point. That's a great number too.
Yeah. And like we said last year, his ball striking caught up a little bit. Had some great finishes. Good year overall. I'm with you on Hardy. I like him at 100. I think for a minimal win bet, that's pretty good upside. Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of options there. And we talked about at the start of the show with the history of guys 80 to 1 and above winning. Some good options there. What about over 100? Anything down there, down the board?
Ben Griffin. I'm going to bet him. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I'll bet him to win, but he played pretty well this fall. He's sitting
Yeah.
at plus 13,000. I mean, that's you can get him in the top 20 or 40 or whatever it is if that's what you want to go with. Russell Knox, he hasn't been very good, I don't think, most of
Yeah.
last year, but he's a good driver of the ball and he hits the irons well. And with it being potentially windy there, because usually it is. Usually it's 10 to 15 pretty consistently. He might be worth something to throw some money on there. And there was one more. Have we gotten past Alex Smalley?
Smalley was in the 80 to 100 range. Let me find him
Okay.
here.
I did want to add Smalley.
Actually, he's 60.
Ugh. I'd look at him in the top 20, but I do like he's been playing good golf over the fall there. So maybe it's something he can carry on over here to Hawaii. Um,
I as well had Benny Griffin kind of circled. You said great fall. Um, uh, David Lingmerth at 200.
Good course history.
Good course history. Kind of revitalized his career, his game on the Corn Ferry last year. Won on the Corn Ferry Tour. To me, that means something. You've won a tournament recently. So Lingberth at 200 feels like pretty good value. Um, I thought you were going to mention Adam Long. I don't know why. You kind of do this every 6 or 7 tournaments. You'll throw the Adam Long name out there. I'll
Yeah.
scoff at it, and then he'll kind of show up. He's at
I was
250.
thinking about for the American Express because that's where he almost
Yeah,
won that event the one year. So what
sure.
about Jerry Kelly's playing in it? Does he have any? Dude is just was forever a make the cut
Mm,
machine,
that's true.
and I think I bet him top 40 last year. I ended up missing
That's
the cut,
oh,
but
that's right. That's right.
but he we have to it's just the yearly Jerry Kelly mention.
Fair. Lucas Glover is down here at it appears to be 300 to 1. It's kind of interesting. I mean, Cole Hammer still waiting on his true arrival. He's at 350. Obviously, you top 20, top 40 odds are going to give you a good number on someone like that. That's way down here. Um, Highly touted amateur.
Yeah,
That hasn't yet translated in the professional game. I think he was a first round leader at RSM. I cashed that one in the fall, but haven't seen a lot from him. But you throw him around names like Bryce Garnett, your boy Brian Stewart, doesn't feel quite quite right. I think that's all I have.
I thought that one of the Cootie brothers was playing this, but that must be the Corn Ferry. Oh, the Corn Ferry's in Bermuda. I think that's what they were talking about. Never mind. But no, Cole Hammer, that's a good one. First round lead bet. I know you took care of that. He's got a real high ceiling. Right now it's not, he's still learning the pro game and everything like that. But he might be a guy that, yeah, you throw a top 40 bet on and you can get, you know, really, really great odds on.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Yep. Getting down to some names I haven't seen before. Sam Stevens, not sure who that is. Entertaining. Matty Schmidt, 400 to 1. Corn Ferry guy. Um, Flashed a couple times at some of those events. I think it was at the Barbasol. He actually was in the mix to win. Um, Completely random name and thought, but I just saw his name.
Nice.
All right, that'll wrap it for the Sony Open. Hopefully, we can do better than last week, where we both had one successful pick out of 5. Hopefully, we can pick the winner this week. Uh, Johnny, thanks for showing up again.
Thanks again.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel. Check it all out. Thursday night recording with our friend Zach Fitzgerald to preview the super wild card games this weekend. Does not include the Detroit Lions, but they're in our hearts always. So join us then. Check everything out we're doing on YouTube if you like watching our faces and the shows. Please continue to. So thanks for joining and watching, and we'll catch you next time.